When you think of Robert Plant, you might think of world tours, best-selling albums, rock and roll royalty, or maybe just his luscious flowing locks. But there's also been a lot of awful stuff that's happened in Robert's life that you might not know about. From car crashes to losing loved ones, his ability to not just carry on but also succeed as one of the greatest musicians who ever walked the planet is really a testament to his strength as a person and as a musician. Hi, I'm Adam, welcome back to Music Mongoose. Plant's story begins in West Bromwich, Staffordshire, the place he was born, a place mostly known for its football team. He grew up with his mum Annie, dad Robert and little sister Alison nearby in Worcestershire, a place mostly known for its sauce and difficult pronunciation.
Worcestershire.
From a young age, Plant was infatuated with music, particularly rock and blues music. People like Elvis, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson. He was much more interested in music than school. It was really hard to combine the two and keep a compatible relationship with schoolmasters and parents at the same time as doing what I really wanted to do, he said in 1970. By the age of 17, Plant left school to pursue a career in music. This was something his parents weren't fond of. His parents were working class, his father was an engineer for the RAF, so they weren't mega rich and couldn't just simply fund his wildest dreams of being a musician, unlike the parents of some other artists. In fact, Robert's parents wanted him to be an accountant. Robert obviously refused, and he was forced to leave home as well. This caused a massive rift between him and his parents. It was the first of what would become many challenges throughout his life, but as he puts it, this period really helped to strengthen his character. I had my moment of professional potential, and because I didn't accept it, I had to leave home when I was 17. So I toughened up pretty quickly. I made my peace with my parents a couple of years later, but it was good. It was what it should be. And I think this whole scenario is really a perfect demonstration of Robert Plant as a character. He was faced with this challenge, being forced to leave home, but he overcame it in his pursuit of his passion, music, and of course became hugely successful because of that decision. And that sort of mentality stayed with him throughout his life, even when he found out that he wasn't even Jimmy Page's first choice for Led Zeppelin. Now, of course, we know Robert Plant as the lead vocalist of Led Zeppelin, but this doesn't mean he was their leader. This was, of course, the role filled by Jimmy Page, the visionary of Led Zeppelin. He had formed the band in 1968 after the dissolvement of the Yardbirds, and he was known for being smart when it came to music and business. So he thought long and hard about who he'd want to be the lead vocalist for Led Zepp, and it wasn't Robert Plant. At that time, Plant was relatively unknown, and Page didn't want to gamble on an untested vocalist. Instead, Page opted for a guy called Terry Reid. His nickname in music industry circles was Super Lungs because of his impressive vocal ability. So yeah, a better bet than Robert. Reid had been a session musician in the early 60s, lending his voice to various projects. He was hired as lead vocalist for Peter J. and the Jaywalkers on their tour supporting the Rolling Stones in 1966. From there, he would establish a solo act and open for the likes of the Stones again, but also Cream and Fleetwood Mac in the late 60s. So for Jimmy Page, Reid was a no-brainer for Led Zeppelin. However, as fate would have it, Reid was committed to several other projects at the time and couldn't commit to Led Zeppelin. Terry did recommend someone else to fill the role though. Robert Plant. It was Robert Plant if you didn't know. Now, before we go on, I want to make a deal with you. Let's call it a gentleman's agreement, okay? If you learn anything new in this video, anything at all, you have to press the subscribe button below, okay? Deal? Look, we're shaking on it now, you can't go back. I mean, Robert thinks it's a good idea, don't you, Robert?
Today, I have to say yes.
And when you subscribe, you'll be able to keep up to date with all my future videos.
Yeah, that's how it works, you know.
As you can see here, only a baffling 1.3% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, which is criminal. So do yourself and Robert a favour and press subscribe. Cheers. Back to it then, Terry Reid must have kicked himself for not taking that job in Led Zeppelin, but he definitely wouldn't want to be in Robert's place on August 4th, 1975. So life was panning out pretty well for Robert by the early 70s. Led Zeppelin were a smashing success. Take that, Mum and Dad! He found a lovely wife, Maureen Wilson, and even had 2 beautiful children, Carmen, born 1968, and Karac, born 1972. They all lived happily on a farm. Literally, it's called Jennings Farm in Worcestershire. However, while on holiday in Greece in 1975, Robert and Maureen, along with their children, were in a serious car crash. Maureen was driving when the car skidded out of control, careened over a ledge, and landed in a tree. Luckily, the children escaped with just a few bruises and a broken bone, but Maureen suffered a fractured skull, and Robert Plant shattered his entire right leg. Plant's injuries would take 2 years to heal. He was in a wheelchair for most of that period. This heavily impacted Led Zeppelin's schedule. Several tour dates were cancelled, and it also delayed work on the band's follow-up album, Presence. It was finally released in 1976. In true Robert Plant fashion, he didn't let this challenge stop him, so he laid down his vocals from his wheelchair. Plant did also go through a bout with depression, but again he overcame this and even reflected this period in the album's decidedly darker lyrics. Now, the weird thing about all this is that Plant and Maureen had been in another car accident just 5 years earlier. In 1970, after finishing a Led Zeppelin tour of England, Plant's Jaguar spun off the road. Though these injuries wouldn't be as serious as his crash 5 years later, a chunk of the windscreen did bury itself in his head, which had a severe impact on his memory. In fact, in a 2016 plagiarism trial, where the band Spirit accused Plant and Page of ripping off their song Taurus for Stairway to Heaven, Plant used this memory loss to prove he couldn't have lifted anything from Spirit. While Plant did attend a concert of theirs and even played snooker with the members afterwards, the car crash happened later that same night. "I did have a bad car accident," he said. "I don't remember seeing Spirit. I don't remember playing snooker." Luckily, he recovered from this one quickly, and it didn't affect Led Zeppelin's schedule too drastically. If you think 2 horror car crashes are surely enough bad luck for one man, think again. Because in the early 70s, Robert had a major problem with his vocal cords. Quite a crucial part of a lead vocalist, wouldn't you say? Robert had to have surgery to remove nodules from his vocal cords before it caused irreversible damage. Although there's no official record of when this surgery takes place, fans reckon they can pinpoint it to around 1972-1973, because Plant's vocals appear to improve around this time in Led Zeppelin's material. Sadly though, as a result, his vocal delivery became much less primal and raw, features of his earlier performances. Now, if you're thinking, surely the man has been through enough, there can't be anything else that goes wrong in Robert's life, well, you'd be wrong again, and this one is by far the saddest. After Robert recovered from his car accident in Greece, Led Zeppelin found themselves in a very different musical landscape. Punk rock was emerging in England with offerings from the likes of Buzzcocks and Sex Pistols, and Led Zeppelin were falling behind. Their latest album, Presence, wasn't well received by fans or critics. However, they had a world tour on the horizon and were ready to prove why they are the best band on the planet. Almost immediately though, things started going wrong. First, despite the earlier operation, Plant lost his voice, so the tour had to be pushed back. In April 1977, the band finally started their tour, and 3 months in, Plant received the worst news imaginable. His son, 5-year-old Karac, had passed away from a stomach infection. Obviously, with the love and support of his fellow bandmates, the tour was cancelled and Plant flew home to England to be with his family. The song All My Love, which appears on Led Zepp's final studio album In Through the Outdoor, is written by Plant about Karac's untimely death. What's more, this almost ended Plant's career in music altogether. In 1977, when Karac passed away, Plant was considering an entirely different career in light of the sad news. He was flirting with the idea of training to become a teacher, a job that would allow him more time with his family. "I was thinking about the merit of my life at that time and whether or not I needed to put a lot more into the reality of the people that I loved and cared for, my daughter and my family generally. So yeah, I was ready to jack it in. I lost my boy. I didn't want to be in Led Zeppelin, I wanted to be with my family." One person was able to convince Robert to stick it out in music though, and that was his best friend, John Bonham. Oh boy, you can see where this one's going, can't you? The pair met in 1965 when they were 17 years old, the same time when Plant moved out of his parents' home to pursue music. Plant and Bonham would play together in bands like the Crawling King Shakes and the Band of Joy. When Plant initially accepted that Led Zeppelin gig, He was very quick to recommend John Bonham for the drums, because he's a lovely, loyal friend. Of course, Bonham was a perfect fit for Led Zeppelin, and now the two had a platform where they could dominate the world together as best friends. Sadly, on September 24th, 1980, after drinking an excessive amount of alcohol, Bonham choked in his sleep. He had suffered from alcohol use throughout his life. Plant was, of course, devastated by the news. Bonham's death was a big reason for Led Zeppelin never returning for a full tour. "I loved your dad way too much," Plant would later tell his son Jason. "When your father left us, left the world, that was it for Led Zeppelin. I thought all those years later, it was just one ridiculous loss." Car crashes, surgery, the loss of his son, the loss of his best friend. Surely that's got to be it, right? No. Because after that, he'd lose the love of his life. Plant met Maureen in 1966. They married in 1968 as Led Zeppelin were beginning to take over the world. Maureen was an incredible wife, and Plant loved her deeply. The Led Zepp song Thank You is dedicated to her. She had supported him from when he was an unknown musician and continued to support him by looking after the children while he was away on tour with Led Zeppelin. However, this touring lifestyle would eventually take a toll on their marriage, and the pair divorced in 1983. Plant did find a new promising relationship in 2010, but this didn't end so well either. Plant reformed one of his earlier groups, one of the groups he had played in with Bonham, Band of Joy. Folk singer Patty Griffin was hired as a backing singer, and he quickly fell in love with her. They moved in together in Austin, Texas, and lived happily for several years. In 2014, though, the relationship ended and Plant moved back to England. Robert Plant is 75 years old now, worth millions of dollars, found huge success not only in Led Zeppelin but also with a gigantic solo career, firmly securing himself as one of the greatest musicians who's ever lived. But despite this, he suffered tragedy after tragedy throughout his entire life. A living demonstration of willpower to overcome those challenges and keep going, keep pursuing your passions in life. Now, one thing I didn't mention in this video were the almost countless times that Led Zeppelin were accused of plagiarism. You can click here for the 7 times that Led Zeppelin ripped off other artists.